Hello, everyone. This is Len Dorman, your head of CARC, and in fact, I'm the only member of CARC. Anyway, okay, music. Set the music. There we go. All right. Now, this is a test run. I have not used our new internet system with StreamYard as of yet. We were having issues for a while. We were having basically dial-up speed with our internet system, and I could not appear on the show. I sure could not do a show. I One the first one I started with, I was kicked out one show. Then the next show I was kicked out twice, and then I tried to do a show, but I knew I was having issues. Thought I'd try it, and when I was talking to the wood, I was booted out for 2 or 3 times, and I just told her completely booted out. I had to go back in, enter my own show. So I just said, okay, forget it. The show is suspended. I told Ted over WLFE DB that I could not do the show, and it was suspended. Unfortunately, the timing was horrible, as he had a paranormal event last weekend, and I could not advertise it for him. I was going to come on and do this extra show, and I still had not tested the internet speed yet. I would have advertised it a week before, but I did not know if the system was going to work well or not. I'd had so much trouble. I was a little bit gun shy, and it seems to be working. I've not gotten booted out of here. What we did, I had 2 paddle antennas. Basically, I work on the cell phone towers. We changed providers. Instead of being with Verizon, as the other one was stuck being, I'm now on AT&T towers. I will go to Verizon. The system will automatically put me on Verizon if the AT&T towers are full. We have a lot of gamers here, and before, when I was on at 10 o'clock, there wasn't that many people using the system. Here, go get the yell out of my eyes. And the show was okay. The problem was their system. So everybody switched to this away from satellite, which is limited, and with too many people on the towers, the internet got really slow, especially on the Verizon towers. Now they're on the AT&T towers. That's faster, getting much faster speeds now, and instead of the antenna being up here, right here to my left, it is now outside. When we bought this place 7 years ago, by the way, we moved here 7 years ago this month, we found some old electrical poles out back, and we later, after I got settled in, drove on around to the front, and I also had an old-fashioned light. There's now the lights they put outside, you're required to have one on your property that's connected straight to the electrical company, and they charge you $10 a month for this. You can get as many as you want, but you're going to pay $10 a month for each one. They're LED now. So this is an old-fashioned bulb light that was connected to the house illegally on one of their poles. So they took it down, gave me the light. So I had these poles that they're just left on the ground back here. So they were my poles. So I put one in the ground and put the old-fashioned bulb light on it, and hooked it up to my front porch instead of the back porch like it was originally hooked, where I can cut it. It cuts on and off with the light just inside with my porch lights and my carport light. So I have plenty of light up front. So what they did when they came by is a big square thing, about this big square, about the size of my laptop, and about laptop size. Let's just go that the standard laptop size, and about this thick. and he mounted up above my roof line on that pole. That's where he got the best signal, aimed at where he got the strongest signal. And we run wire router, which is in here for the wireless. And, here we go with faster internet. Now, we still have a little bit of problem with a lot of the gamers here, so I'm still got to run my show a little bit later. But I don't think I'll be booted out. I have not been booted out here. It's only blinked once, which is not bad for internet. So that's what we're going to do from now on is go with this. Now, I'm not planning on having a show with Southern Fried Paranormal. I don't know if I won't have one this week or not. I will announce that at a later date. I will be recording a show this coming week with Amelia Cotter for later viewing. I've also got to contact my previous guest, if this test works out fine, for the talk show, which will be on WLFEDB. This show is not going to be WLFEDB. This is my show. And it'll be shown on my Facebook page, not the Southern Fried Paranormal page. It'll be shown on my YouTube channel, and it will be shown on my Twitter page. So this is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a lot of me. Unless I have a guest that specifically wants to be on the show, I'm not going to have a guest. Now, if I have a guest that's up at night and wants to appear on this show, oh yeah, that's fine. Let's go for it. Have some friends in Australia. The show might be at a better time for them. So it just depends on what's going on. If I have a guest or not, mostly it's going to be about me. And as you heard the song before, was Ghost Stories. And by the way, for YouTube and Facebook especially, I think they pretty well gotten over the copyright issues with music. This music I've got is copyrighted by this gentleman. He made this music, so of course he owns copyright to it. I donated to his site, so I have authorization to run his music. You can too. Let me get out of here for a second. Well, so you see that's owned by Facility Studios. You can also use his music. He does ask for a donation. And if you're going to use somebody else's where they've got copyright to it, I think that's just being nice, is to give them a donation. So I can use that song, which he calls Ghost Stories, because that's what this show is going to be about, is some of the experiences I've had. Later on, I'll be showing videos of telling stories about things I've gotten into, and some of the videos that I have of kind of evidence I've gotten, and show you me. I've got all kinds of videos. I need to go there and post them on YouTube. I'm not a very good video editor. I don't have the full version of a video software. I've had several suggested to me. I will be picking that up in the next few months. And then I'll just got to learn how to use it and edit some videos and put my evidence video on YouTube. Will be not just the evidence. I may show a repeat of the evidence or slow-mo or whatever. But it will be shown kind of in episodic form, where you're showing the investigation, maybe me arriving there, the outside during the day, what it looks like, maybe a quick walkthrough, and then go through what I went through inside. Some of these will be public investigations where you will see other people. A couple of them, you will see a tour guide. I have one example where, and I got this on video, in front of about 18, 20 people, to where I was talking to a spirit on a public tour. And we were in a known haunted location. I had actually spoken to the spirit uh, months before. I think this was July of 16. And I'd spoken with the spirit in February of 16. And so he was at least familiar with me. The tour guide took 4, 5, 6 people upstairs. And during that upstairs portions that they didn't really get anything, but I was conversing with the spirit, and like I said, in front of about 15, 18 people. She brought the 4 or 5 she had upstairs down, and the spirit was talking. And she said so it was wonderful to hear him speak. She had not heard his voice in quite some time. And the spirit said to me and to the group, I don't like her. And I said, why don't you like the tour guide? And he said, she talks too much. So she said, well, you think I talk too much? Well, I just step outside. So she went outside and stood in the courtyard until we were done with the investigation. And I talked on with the spirit. He finally faded away. If you have ever ghosted it before, you know that they're not good for hours of conversation. We'd already talked for an hour, and that was about as much interaction as you can ever hope for. And he faded away, so we ended the investigation, which was a sub-investigation of when I investigated the Andrew Jackson Hotel. And yes, you got me sometimes with the same tour guide. You'll see her on the couch with me as we investigated one of the most haunted rooms in the Andrew Jackson Hotel. You also see me in the same room later the next night, I believe, because we investigated for 2 nights, in that room by myself. And yes, I do end up investigating a lot by myself. Of course, while I was in these rooms and investigating around the Andrew Jackson Hotel, my wife was in our hotel room again in the Andrew Jackson, but in a room that's not known for any activity. And we had ghosts that like to sit in the chair. Meters would go off when you get around the chair, you get around the electrical systems. It wouldn't go off. We could not make a meter go off anywhere but this chair. Couldn't make it go off into bed, only the chair. We checked around, we moved the chair, and it would not pick it up at the spot where the chair was. It picked it up at the chair where we moved it to. And we put a device in there so we could communicate. He gave us his name, and we would say hi to him when we walked in. He would say hi back. My wife, during the night, before she went to sleep, was binge watching, hoping on spoiling copyrights here, Game of Thrones. If you want to send me a check for advertising, go ahead. Anyway, she was binge watching that, and the spirit was watching with her and would occasionally speak. She lived in a haunted house up in Chicago, half house in Chicago, and she was the son of the former owner. My wife and her mother were the second owners of the house. The first owners moved away to Wisconsin, I believe, and died in Wisconsin, and their son died shortly thereafter. So instead of hanging around the new house in Wisconsin, he came back to where he had one painting that he had left, that I finally found the reason why he was around the house, and why I felt this chill in this one spot. He had one with God from the basement and around was put around the painting, and he actually was stomp on the floor when other spirits came through and came close to the painting. He finally left when a biker who was killed close to where I was investigating at Bachelor's Grove Cemetery followed me home, and the two of them met in the hallway and left the building. You could feel it. You could feel both the presence of both of them, and you felt when they left. And we never heard another strange noise or had any kind of activity that you could even think was paranormal in the house. No strange noises, no bumps, no nothing. And we've had clocks knocked off the wall. We've had shadow figures walking up and down. Uh, we never saw those two again. So I'm assuming they took off to the other side and maybe on a bike have seen the world. Who knows? Two free spirits took off with each other and never saw them again. So I wish them the best. So there's a ghost story right there. In fact, two or three of them. So this is what we're going to talk about on the Midnight Special Paranormal Show. I'm hoping the guy who ran the old Midnight Specials from the 70s and 80s has just cranked up a YouTube channel. I'm hoping he will, before he sues me, he at least says something, because mine is a Midnight Special Paranormal Show. And I do not play music. He plays music from those 70s and 80s, Donna Summer, the older groups that actually appeared on the Midnight Special. Something I grew up with. That was some fantastic music. You had today's artist playing in concert, and he showed it on TV while the song was still in the top 10 or top 20 songs. And it's some great music. So look up the Midnight Special on YouTube if you want to hear some good music. I will not be playing music on this show. So if he wants me to change it, I'll change it to something else. Maybe put Midnight Paranormal Special Show or something. I don't know. But anyway, let's hope he doesn't say anything. Of course, you can't sue me. I'm not making any money with this. Of course, if I got paid for it, then that's something different. Because that's, this is me. It doesn't involve WLFEDP at all. Okay. Now, let me get. By the way, those of you who watch the show know that no, I don't drink alcohol during the show. This is sweet tea. Oh yeah. Like I said, we'll be talking about guests. There is some people who are coming up investigating at Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, my old grounds. Please remember to say hello to Amelia and Libby Mae Humphrey when I go there. Ask for them and see if they will answer you. Maybe drop my name too. Because I talked to both of them. Libby Mae started following me around, and she got where she could actually leave the cemetery without her mother's help, because she died at 11 months and 4 days old. She learned through me how she could move around herself, and since she's no longer stuck in the cemetery, her mother no longer has to go in there at dusk every day, 7 days a week, and pick her up and carry her away. She is Amelia Patrick Humphrey is the White Lady of Bachelor's Grove. That's been confirmed by me through some 2 years of research that I did investigating, and Dale Kazmarek also has asked her if she was the White Lady from Bachelor's Grove, and she said yes. So there's that. And that is about as scary a story as you can get. Bachelor's Grove is two cemeteries, two locations. It was always one thing. It was always Amelia. You could talk to some of the other people who were buried buried there before. For a second, went away. Oh well, I got to get a wire in here too. That'll speed things up. But right now, at least I'm being able to broadcast. Anyway, during the day, it was friendly spirits. In one of the houses, the remains, ruins, whatever you want to call them, a few, maybe 100 yards or so from the cemetery back in the forest preserve. I was there one day and hadn't gotten anything. I went for 2 hours and I didn't get a sound. That happens. And if you've been ghost hunting before, you know you go into a location, it's not guaranteed that you will get anything. In fact, if I went to a place and spent a couple of hours and I didn't have total failure of not getting anything, I would suspect my own methods. You got to have a null uh, experience to realize, this isn't fake. When you hear something, it's real. But the null experiences convinced me more of the paranormal than having voices come through. Because you're in voice, you don't know who you're hearing, you don't know who you're talking to. But if you go someplace and you get nothing, then okay, it's not just random junk I'm hearing. There's nothing to hear. There's no evidence to be gotten. But then after a couple of hours, just as I was about ready to pack it up and go, I was back there with two people, friend of mine, Mikey, he actually remember now, of the Outcast Marriage Group, and another young lady, I forget her name. She liked to wear a wig. I'm not I'm not sure why she wore a wig. I do not ask ladies this. Why are you wearing a wig? Oh, that's rude. But she wore a wig. She was a ghostwriter. If you know that, she lets her pen to paper and lets the spirits write what the hand does. It's not her writing. It can actually be in somebody else's handwriting. And she communicated with a Civil War veteran that was buried there. I think he died in the 1880s. But I communicated with him verbally where she could hear his voice. And she thought that was fantastic, actually hearing his voice for the first time. So she went back in the back with me and see what else I could get. Finally, I heard a male voice, a bunch of crackling noises. It sounded like a computer clearing his throat's what it sounded like. And a male voice came through and said, she's wearing a blonde hat. And a woman's voice came through. What? And he repeats, she's wearing a blonde hat. Then you're male and female laughing. Then you heard a noise again and got nothing. I stayed there for about another 30, 40 minutes and didn't get a sound. And I started looking up, and back when that was a small German settlement, and there were a few people, and you also have a silo foundation. And they, sometimes you get activity there, sometimes you don't. But back in the day when they were active, and we know the years, they didn't have the word wig. That was not English language yet. When you were wearing a wig, you were wearing a hat. It was like our founding fathers; they all wore the white powdered wigs. And of course, back then it was not a wig; it was a hat. And this wasn't too long after the Revolutionary Wars when people lived back there, settling what was then the far west, Chicago, just south of Chicago. But that was rather amazing. I told her about it when I heard it at home because I did not understand what it was live. And she said, they were making fun of my wig. I said, apparently. So she kind of found that amusing. But that's evidence. That, that's the only words we got. And why they were making fun of her wig. The words would have meant absolutely nothing had she not been there. It's been me and Mikey, me by myself. Uh, the wig comment or the hat comment would have meant absolutely nothing. Even okay, she's wearing a blonde hat. Well, I was not wearing a blonde hat. Mikey was not wearing a hat at all. So we probably not had the communication without her. So that was an amazing event. The whole Bachelor's Grove was crazy, but before I left, I got Amelia and May. I told them to go see the world. Neither one of them had traveled that much before she died. Before Amelia died in 1881, I believe, and she's buried a few miles away from this location, a cemetery that was not accepting burials. When Libby May died in 1865, they did not accept burials till 1869. And John Humphrey, her father, got a plot out there. John Humphrey's buried out there. Amelia's buried out there. John's second wife is buried out there. And on the other side of one wife's to the right, one wife's to the left, and the kids from each one are buried on the other side of their mother. Several siblings who moved. One moved to Florida and lived for a long time. Is buried in Florida, I'm assuming. One moved to California and disappeared. Where that person went to. You got to assume, if all the information have is they went to California, you got to assume they died and were buried in California. But Libby May is the only one she's buried in Amelia Patrick's in the Patrick plot in Bachelor's Grove, because that's the only place they could put her, because their official family plot was not ready. Amelia Patrick's family had a plot there, one of the larger plots. I think it's the second largest plot in Bachelor's Grove. And it's also one where when they pulled out about half the bodies out of Bachelor's Grove, they could not find anyone from the Humphrey or the Patrick family who wanted or could afford to have the bodies exhumed and moved to an active cemetery when they shut the cemetery down. So the six, well, some people say 5 to 7 people are buried in the Patrick plot. You go in the front gate of the cemetery, take a few steps, and you'll see a stump where a double tree had been cut down. You see 2 headstones up against that tree. Ignore, though, the people who are listed on the stone. They did get exhumed by their families, but they need those stones. So they just left the stones in the cemetery. That's just some extra stones laying around. They don't know exactly where the records have been lost, about exactly where those people were buried, but they're no longer buried there. They're buried in their family plot, presumably interactive cemetery. But they left those stones there. Some people pulled their bodies up and they dumped the headstones in the pond just to keep people from taking them home for souvenirs. Some people took the stones with them. That was a family option. But that's why there were stones left in the pond, and they took several because the families dumped them there, just to keep from dragging a 300-pound stone all over the town, and to keep people from messing with them. So there's a couple of stones there at Bachelor's Grove who don't know where the graves were, and it's no longer a grave because the body's gone. Those 2 people are gone. But you have a big gravestone with a small. You have a piece of concrete that's kind of upended. The roots got up under it and tilted it. there is a stone that sits on, that's supposed to sit on top of that concrete. People keep moving it. And then you also have a third stone that sits on top of the square stone that actually says Patrick and lists a few names. People keep moving that. They tried to steal it, but when something weighs close to 300 pounds, that's not the easiest thing to just put on your shoulder and walk out with. Somebody can put a 300-pound solid gravestone on their shoulder and starts walking down the road. I'm not going to try to stop him. That's not my business at that point, because there's nothing I can do with it. Anyway, that's where the Patrick Plate is. Now, those things do get, those two stones are loose. They do get moved. Some people try to drag them to the gate. They'll give it 10 to 15 feet, maybe halfway to the gate, and they get tired of dragging that big heavy stone and realize they've got another quarter of a mile before they can put it in their trunk. So I don't know what they're thinking. They'll probably get tired real quick and just leave it where it is. Then people go back there trying to keep the cemetery straight, drag it back to where it belongs. That's where they are in front of that stuff on the right hand side. About 67, that's right there to the stone that's in the ground. That's one that's been kind of slanted because of roots growing up under it. Is they can't move that. That's in the ground, but just right there on the path. You don't have to get off that path to see this. We have seen spirits running around there where Libby May's siblings that were buried with their mother have come to play with her. She had one die as a child and had another die at about 14. So they will come by and play with their actually older, but died younger sibling. And occasionally John would come in and make an appearance just to make sure everything's okay. He's the most friendly spirit, especially to me. Of course, he has reason to. I kind of got friendly with his wife and was telling her, she doesn't have to sit there and, wait on him. Just go see the world. So you take Libby Bay, take your kids, go. He's got his other wife to keep it distracted. That cannot be. When Amelia died, he met his second wife around 6 months after his wife died. He was a state senator. She was his secretary, and they were having an affair for a decade or two. Until Amelia died, and then they went ahead and got married. So you can imagine what's going on the drama on the other side, with that family. And this is why it creates unrest. But a lot of the daytime, evening, dusk type haunting, or the white lady walking around either with a child or crying, that was Amelia Patrick Humphrey. And now she's no longer doing that. She doesn't come in and have to get her child anymore. Libby May can go meet her. And the way I got to that, I have a K2 meter with a sensor, a temperature sensor. And it emits a slight tone when temperature changes. I've had it in an air conditioning room, like this one is now with air conditioning running. And when the compressor pops on, it emits a slight tone that I barely hear because I've lost most of my hearing. But especially women can. In Bachelor's Grove, it was not so high pitched, but very, very loud. And I talked to the makers of the K2 meter, and they said that thing sounds loud. That's a paranormal experience. The only way I could make it work like that is if I physically put my fingers on either side of the sensor like this and squeezed and held my hand like that, and the heat in my hand would make the alarm go off. That's the only way I could make it sound the way it was sounding in Bachelor Grove Cemetery. Bachelor Grove has a history of meters. Just not picking up in it. A lot of people say, your meter, you want to get fake meters because there's two very close together. We call them the twin cell phone towers. Would set off all kinds of meters. That was the theory. You can't. The people hadn't been there said you can't rely on any kind of meter readings you get in Bachelor's Grove because of those twin towers, a quarter of a mile away. And I can certainly see that if meters went off in the cemetery. But I've only seen a couple of yellow lights. You're familiar with the K2, it's got a green, then yellow, orange, and a red light. Only a quick flash of yellow lights on a K2, and that's it. I saw a male meter flash once for a half a second. If you wasn't looking at it, you'd miss it. And that's all the meter activity I've ever seen there before or after my temperature K2. My regular K2 never made a beep. But something was touching the temperature sensor. Something was touching it with it, where I had to put my fingers on either side of it and squeeze it in between my fingers and thumb to make it imitate the sound. And it would do that a lot of times when I went to Bachelor's Grove. Now, when I tried to carry on a conversation, that thing was screaming to high heaven or attempts to make tunes. I've heard where you can sit there and the only way I can recreate it is sit there and do this, with quick contacts, like I was trying to tap that Morse code, and almost make a musical tone of it, where Libby May was playing with it. That's the only way I put my fingers on it and play with it. The only other time it went off anywhere that loud was when I took her to Orland Park. Edward's parents are buried. Park Cemetery. Went to their house. It was built. It was just completed right about the time that Amelia died. She barely saw it built. She died. He moved his new wife in. But I took her. I went to somebody went to the Patrick Stone and put the meter on the stone like I usually did, and she started playing with it. And I asked her if she wanted to go to the house and to jump on me and let's go. Well, I was being assisted. Had somebody there with me. We did not know that Libby May was not by herself. She had two of her siblings with her. So the two of us had three semi-attachments, which is not comfortable feeling. Drove the miles into the Humphrey house, and we turned them loose in the house. Now, I held the meter in my hand with it on. She came up and was holding my hand and playing with the meter. Got tone. And that's one of the last times I heard it. She only played with it a couple of times when I was at the cemetery before I left. And that's the only time I ever heard that loud of a tone anywhere but in the Patrick and Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. Now, I've taken that thing a whole bunch of places. I've never had another spirit touch it like she did. And I was sitting in a folding chair that I carried right there. Sitting in the shade, wasn't much going on. And it started, I had it in a cup holder, the K2 meter in a cup holder. Had been drinking another, I was dozing. I was actually asleep. The meter went off. Let me think, you know you're in a haunted cemetery. And you're by yourself in that haunted cemetery. And all of a sudden, a piece of equipment goes off that's within inches of your arm, and only a foot or two from your face, and jars you out a little nap you're taking. That wake you up. It was a bit hard. So that's I've been living on that. And that was interesting time. Then I tried to find out who the woman was coming in there in the at one point I tried to film on it was Christmas Eve one year, and the video was on the camera. I could not download it. Tried every method I could think of to download it off the card. Tried to download it through the camera. Put the card in a card reader. Tried to download it and said it was corrupted. But I could watch the video on the camera. And I talked to several people in camera departments of new digital cameras, and they said that's impossible. If it's corrupted, it's corrupted. It's not going. You're not going to be able to see it. You're not going to be able to play it on the camera. I said it plays just fine on the camera. I said you just cannot download it. And so I started trying to delete it. So first their answer was that's impossible. Never heard of any such thing. I tried to delete it and could not delete it. Finally got it deleted after months, but kept on using the same card with no issues. The next time I saw something moving in the air and videoed it, I'd investigated the Humphrey house and had an incident with John Humphrey, and she found it quite amusing, and to download the video at that point. Doesn't show a whole lot. I could see something moving in the air, and one tall weed got pushed to the side. Now, those of you wondering if you've been to Bachelor's Grove lately, the past 7 years, I started cutting Bachelor's Grove weeds. That was new just before I left. They wanted to do that so the forest preserve can see people hiding in there. Because before, with 4, 5, 6 foot weeds, you could have hidden a couple of platoons of Marines in there, and they would never have known anybody was in the cemetery. I mean, because you're supposed to be out of there at night. And so they cut it all down, including the flowers that were growing there, so nobody can hide in there. So it's different in Bachelor's Grove now than it used to be. You don't have Amelia, you don't have Libby May hanging out that much there anymore. You've actually got a call to some of them. John doesn't come in there anymore, so you can talk to some of the other daytime spirits. But it's not as haunted as it used to be. It's not as heavy as it was. You don't feel or hear the popping noises of portals opening and closing anymore. At night, it is a different experience, and it's not as bad as it used to be. But you have a whole different group of spirits in there at night. So anybody who has gotten Nick Malay's father, Paul Malay, got a pass several years ago. I don't know if he can get another one or not to go in there at night. Dale Kazmarek got a permit to go in there once, but there's a big fight over that. You have a lot of people who want to take possession of the cemetery. You have people who go there on a daily basis. They make excuses like, I'm watching the trash, I'm putting bags in here, I'm cleaning up the cemetery, whatever. Well, that's being done by the county now. But they're saying that I've had a lot of people say, if I win the lottery, I'd give every bit of it. If I won $100 million, I'd pay them $100 million for the cemetery in that hill over there. And I'd live there over the cemetery, so every day I got to look out at the cemetery. What? there's no electricity over there. The cell towers are run by a diesel run generator because there's no power there. It's insane. A lot of people have fought over that cemetery. We've had one guy climbing trees, saying he's the benefactor or the overseer or whatever of the cemetery, try to run people out and talk to them and whistle them. You have crap paranormal equipment and da da da. At one point, the Forest Service was thinking about building cabins in the forest right outside the cemetery, and because it is a popular hiking lane right in front of the cemetery. They were talking about building cabins there, and they decided not to because they had several paranormal people who wanted to rent the cabins every weekend for the first 3 years the cabins were built, so they could make money. So they could rent the cabins out. They'd rent the cabins, paying the bill for the Forest Reserve, and then charge other people more, so they'd make money giving tours. But now they've said no, we're not going to build cabins anymore, and they do not allow paid in there. If some people don't try to come in there and empty the bus out, they will. If they see you, they will say something to you. If you're trying to get off a bus or load a bus, they will give you a ticket. You're not supposed to be in there, and charge money for that. Some people try to do it. Some people can get away with it, but you're not supposed to do that anymore because they literally have their phone lines lighting up and people fussing. But because they want all the rights to the cemetery, they want to make all the money during tours and not allow anybody else in there. It's just absolutely crazy, and I'm almost glad I'm not involved with it. I got my research done over several years, going there sometimes 4, 5, and 6 times a week. And I feel an attachment to the place too. I don't want to own it. I'm perfectly happy down here in Arkansas. All right, we're nearing an hour on this show, and I was going to keep it under an hour for this test. My little speed indicator, that my one person who I've had up to 2 people watching tonight. Thank you for your watching. They did not leave a comment in the chat room, but I appreciate your listening. This was just a test and a quick show of what I'm going to be doing at midnight on Saturday nights. And we'll continue on the show next week. I will have a better laid out format. It will be me appearing with probably a different shirt. I may be wearing this one. I don't know. It's one of my summer shirts. But I will be just telling ghost stories, maybe showing videos of past investigations. This will be me unless, again, somebody wants to appear on the late night show. I would rather them appear on the Thursday show. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing this week. I'm not going to have a guest on if I do the Southern Fried Paranormal show this Thursday. I will see what I can get together by then, but I think it will be not this coming week, but the next week before I start having any guests. Just making sure this is done right, and this show is recorded, and I will show it probably another time or two, because I did tell a fairly good story from Bachelor's Grove. If anybody wants to go there, I mean, if you live in the Chicago area, all the money you got to spend unless you stay there at night, which is dumb. Last I heard, it was a $75 ticket. You could call it in the Forest Reserve at night. And they issue very few permits, and only very few. I would say probably Paul Millay and Dale Casimiri are probably 2 of the only people that can get in there at night on a permit if they want to go through the hassle of doing it again. I'm not sure the motivations of those 2 gentlemen. But like I said, Dale goes back to sometimes during the day. Sometimes he gets results. He can call Amelia, and she will answer him most of the time. And he's the first person I talked to when I realized and found out, and Amelia told me she was the white lady from Baxter's Grove that Dale's group got a picture of many, many years ago. That was, of course, you see the look on his face. That was, took a lot of work. And I don't think I've got that picture put on. Yes, I do. I do have. Don't have the White Lady in Baxter's Grove, which is copyrighted. That photo is copyrighted by Dale Kazmarek. I don't really want to show it to him unless I tell him I'm going to show it during the show sometimes. But this is a picture, a wedding picture. This is basically a photo of a photo that was taken in 1863, the wedding day of John Humphrey and Amelia Patrick. There's a happy couple right there. And if you look at the picture that Dale had, you will see the same hairstyle, the same hair length. Even though it's a profile shot, you will notice the profile is basically the same. And the dress is the same. It appears kind of translucent, but it's solid enough where you can see that it is one color with polka dots. And that was her wedding dress. So, that was her choice. That may have been the style in 1865. I have no clue. I was not alive. I was not alive for 90 years, 91 years. 90, wedding day, about 94 years. Here is Libby May, just a note taken, buried at Baxter's Grove. Died 11 months and 4 days in 1865 and buried at Baxter's Grove. And that's official from the Humphrey House. And that's why the white lady was there, simply comforting her firstborn child. Not a horror story, not a demon story, which is why that I was not on certain TV shows, because they were looking for demons, and all I had was a love story between a mother and her firstborn child. Anyway, this is going to be enough for tonight. Like I said, I want to keep the show in an hour so I can show it again. Y'all take care of yourselves. Happy hunting. Happy haunting. And just remember one thing. As I slowly crank up the music. Paranormal never sleeps. Good night, everybody.